What is going on, everybody? Welcome to my Week 4 NFL predictions show. Before we get into this, I do want to remind you that this video is available exclusively on my Patreon every single week. We post it here public on YouTube the first NFL week of every month. But if you enjoy this video, if you want access to my picks, and you want to support my channel all in the process, you can head over to patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy, join Patreon gang, and we'll see you there every single week. But otherwise, let's get into it. And coming off a really strong week last week, the first 2 weeks didn't go great, but bounced back in a big way last week, literally 100% in terms of my bet the spreads, my plays, which are where I'm saying I'm actually putting my own money on. Even the over-unders, the upset picks, we have bounced back to a point heading into week 4 where I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at and hopefully can continue to build on some good picks here in week 4. But obviously, this is coming after the Lions game. I tweeted out my pick for that game. We did pick Detroit 21-17. They played even better than I expected, and a huge win for Detroit. But we're starting off 1-0 on the week. Atlanta at versus Jacksonville. This is the London game, and I'm actually going to be backing the Jaguars this week as a bet the spread and a play this week. Now, this one is definitely a little risky, but I do think the Jags have had a lot of weird randomness going. I'm not going to say going against them because this is self-inflicted wounds, but I'm going to hope that a team that is much more familiar with these London trips here in Jacksonville, they're going to be out there for 2 weeks, I think. I can't imagine they'd be coming home in between. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm actually curious what they're doing travel-wise. But anyway, the Jags they've got to clean up the drops and the penalties and all that stuff. But I think they're a better team overall than they've played the last 2 weeks. Beyond that, I also think they match up well with Atlanta. I think they'll be able to pass the ball quite effectively against this group. They have enough different weapons to attack any weaknesses in the secondary that Atlanta does have. And Atlanta's pass rush, I don't think, is going to be able to capitalize on these Jaguars offensive line issues in the way that some of their previous matchups have. So I like the way the Jags offense matches up here, and I think the Jags defense plays a style of football that is at least catered to shut down all this underneath stuff, similar to what Detroit did last week. You know, the Jags pass rush and secondary are more questionable, but I love these linebackers and all the different guys they have up front to hopefully slow down the Falcons' run game and basically make Desmond Ridder beat the Jags, who's been truly horrible this year. This might be the Desmond Ridder gets benched game, honestly. So I like the Jags quite a bit in this game, but it's just slightly risky because they have to stop shooting themselves in the foot. But I'm going to take the Jags 28-21, getting back to 500 in their first London game. Then Pittsburgh at Houston. CJ Stroud's been playing really well, which gives you slight pause in a matchup that otherwise should favor the Steelers really well. I am going to take the Steelers, and I still think there's pretty good value there with it just being 3 points. Sorry, Texans fans, but I don't view Houston as this massive home field advantage, especially against Pittsburgh, whose fans travel quite well. But the biggest thing here is Houston's offensive line injuries. Now, Houston held up quite well last week on the offensive line, but this is different. For one, you're not facing the Jags pass rush, you're facing the Steelers pass rush. And this time around, Josh Jones isn't expected to play, who actually played really well last week at left tackle for the Texans. So I'm definitely worried about Stroud facing this defense in this game. And I think the Steelers can get enough offensively against a Texans defense that played okay last week, but I don't think that highly of that defense quite yet. So I do think the Steelers are in a pretty good spot to win this game. I'm not fully making this a play as a bet the spread, but if you do want to bet this game, I would encourage the spread, even if it's probably going to be fairly tight because Pittsburgh does tend to keep things pretty close to the belt. But I could see, 21-17, 21-14, something like that, and the Steelers cover here. Then we have the Rams at Colts. And we're still waiting to hear official word on if Anthony Richardson's going to play in this game. Ultimately, I think Minshew's played well enough that it's close enough to a push that doesn't really change my opinion on who wins this game. It just provides different types of challenges for this Rams defense. But for me, I think the Rams offense bounces back in a big way this week. I really like how they match up specifically against Gus Bradley's defense. That's going to be the big matchup to watch here is, are the Colts going to just sit in cover 3, single high structures like they like to do? Or are they going to do something they haven't done really ever under Gus Bradley and mix things up? I think Sean McVay's offense with all of these in-breakers is systematically designed to attack a cover 3 defense. That's why we've seen the Shanahan offense's uptick in the league while the cover 3 defenses have downticked. So I really like this matchup for the Rams. I think Stafford will play well. Also, DeForest Buckner and Quentin Nelson are questionable in this game. I would still take the Rams if those guys play. But if those guys are out, you're getting extra value, I think, on the spread there because those are huge difference makers in the trenches. So I'm going Rams 26-20 in what should be a good game, but considering it's a pick'em, I think the Rams and their experience are going to be able to find a way to win this game late, and their offense will prevail. So we'll go 26-20, bet the spread and a play on the LA Rams this week. Then Minnesota at Carolina. On paper, Minnesota should dominate this game. The Carolina Panthers defense has really struggled lately. Tons of injuries, especially, have held them back. And Minnesota's offense has played really well. They just got to clean up the fumbles. But until they do that, I don't know if I'm taking them to cover a 4-point spread. Couple interesting matchups in this game, though. Possibly the worst secondary in the league versus the worst group of receivers in the NFL. You also have the Adam Thielen revenge factor. Bryce Young also coming back in this game. And something I talked about in my Bryce Young video is he has struggled against the blitz early in his NFL career, but especially going back to Alabama, that was like one of the few major knocks I had on him was blitz recognition, and they're going to blitz the daylights out of him in this game. So that's going to be interesting to see how Carolina's offensive line holds up, how Bryce Young's decision-making against the blitz functions in this game. Minnesota is not a team I'm comfortable taking to cover a 4-point spread at this point in time, but if I had to bet, I'd probably lean with that. By the way, I'll also be at this game. Me and my wife are going, so if there's any Vikings or Panthers fans out in Charlotte this weekend, come say hi. Tampa Bay at New Orleans, another NFC South game here. The battle for first place in the NFC South, potentially, if Atlanta loses in the morning. But Jameis Winston obviously stepping in. I do think it's fascinating that they're still 3.5-point favorites over Tampa, despite the quarterback shift there. I think that signals Vegas doesn't see a huge difference between these quarterbacks, and honestly, I don't either. I am very fascinated to see how Jameis plays here. It's fun that he's getting his first start here against his former team, Tampa Bay. So should be an interesting game, to say the least. I have no idea which direction this goes. I do think this is a low-scoring affair. New Orleans offense in general has just been quite poor. I think Tampa Bay can get after Jameis and definitely shut down the run again, which has been a huge issue for New Orleans. I do think this is the Alvin Kamara return game. I don't know. I haven't seen a ton from Alvin Kamara in his last couple seasons for me to think he's going to be a big difference maker for them. But another thing to keep an eye on here, a new factor for this Saints offense. I'm very curious to see what this group looks like with Jameis, with Kamara. I am going to take the Saints to win this one because I think their defense can provide a lot of problems for Baker. They actually have the secondary to match up with these Tampa Bay receivers. Marshawn Lattimore does seem to have Mike Evans' number, and I like these other corners as well to handle Chris Godwin. So I do like the way New Orleans defense should shape up in this game. In New Orleans as well, that definitely helps. So we're going to go Saints 20-17, but I do think this is going to be a close, interesting matchup. Real quick, I just want to remind you guys that I have been uploading my weekly recap shows to the Fully Inflated Football podcast. So if you want even more analysis from me, just make sure you're not missing it. We've got a separate YouTube channel for video podcasts, or just search Fully Inflated Football Podcast wherever you get your audio podcasts. Then we have another divisional battle, but in the NFC East, Washington at Philadelphia. 8.5-point spread in this one. That one definitely caught my attention as being quite large. I get it, though, after Sam Howell played last week with Washington's offensive line woes, going against this Eagles defense that's really heating up, starting to witness how good Jalen Carter is. I wouldn't bet that number. There's a lot of backdoor cover potential. I don't think the Eagles defense is foolproof right now. But more notably is the Eagles offense hasn't been the freight train that they were last year, and they're going against a really stout Washington defense that even played okay last week against the Bills. It's just they were on the field all game. So I'm taking the Eagles to win. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, and my score prediction even has them covering the spread, but that's too many points for me to be comfortable with because I don't think Washington truly sucks. Miami at Buffalo, definitely the game of the week here, man. And I don't get this spread. I think this should be a pick'em game at best. I do think Miami is a better football team than Buffalo, even if it's close. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to take the Dolphins to win this game outright. Now I'm going to make the spread the play because I think those 3 points are valuable in what should be a really good game. But I don't mind taking a little extra risk for the upset pick either. Betting against Miami just seems crazy right now, and not betting on them even seems crazy. I mean, they are absolutely rolling right now, but there's some very interesting challenges in this game. I mean, for both sides. I think for Buffalo, this is a huge game, not just for this season, but this is going to tell us a lot about how good is Sean McDermott at being the defensive guru for this team. He's been kind of the CEO guy for so long. Leslie Frazier steps away. So far, the Bills' defense this year, with McDermott calling the plays and taking over the defense, has actually impressed me, and you're starting to feel McDermott a little bit more. But this is obviously a completely different challenge, to say the least, than going against, the Raiders and the Commanders and the Jets. You're now going against the best offensive guru in the NFL right now in Mike McDaniel. So that coaching battle is going to be super fascinating here. And then which of these pass rushes are going to step up? Can Buffalo get after Josh Allen and maybe force some mistakes, running a system, that Fangio-style scheme that is designed to limit big plays and capitalize on mistakes and hopefully be able to rush with 4 up front? Now, I think Jalen Phillips is questionable at the moment. It's not a perfect slate of health for Miami's defense right now. They're going to be challenged against a Bills offense that has played much better the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to side with Miami here. They've just been on such a roll, and it feels like their year a little bit here. Maybe that's reading too far into it, but this is far from a given. I think Buffalo is going to put up a really good fight in this game, and it should be a game that lives up to the hype. I can't wait. All right, Cincinnati at Tennessee. Not going to be quite as interesting from an offensive production standpoint here. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. I actually like the under 41 points in this game. I've got this 20-16 Cincinnati. I love the way Cincinnati's defensive line is playing. I think they're going to be able to keep the score down against Tennessee. But the Bengals offense is not themselves right now, and I think they're going to smell blood at home in this game. I think Mike Vrabel's going to do a very good job scheming up all of these quick-hitting targets to Jamar Chase and make them beat them elsewhere. And I think Joe Burrow, throughout the course of the game, will find the answers because I think he's going to get enough opportunities. But I don't think this is the week where Cincinnati's offense just explodes back onto the scene either. And if Cordell Volson is in there, they're going to try to get Jeffrey Simmons on him one-on-one as much as possible. And let's hope Joe Burrow can come out of this week healthy. Baltimore at Cleveland. This one I have no clue who wins this game. I mean, Cleveland's defense is terrifying right now, and ultimately that's why I'm going to pick the Browns at home in this game and what could be a statement by them that they are here to compete for the AFC North title. But that said, I think Lamar has played fantastic. I think they had some self-inflicted wounds last week that led to them losing a game that they should have won, even though they have all these injuries. And that's the other side of this thing, is Baltimore's just not at full strength right now, and I think it did hold them back last week. It's hard to even know necessarily who's going to go, who's not going to go. So for that reason, I'm not going to bet this game, and I'm not going to have any confidence predicting this one. But definitely going to be a power matchup to see how Lamar can deal with this pass rush. Does he take too many sacks in this game, or does it go the other way and the Browns over pursue and breaks the integrity of their defense and Lamar has an MVP type of game? It should be a really fun game. Inversely, I guess we have to talk about Deshaun Watson's offense. Just so entirely unpredictable right now. It feels like they're kind of big play or bust at the moment. The Ravens' two main edge rushers, Ojabo and Owe, I guess Clowney's having a solid year for them too, but those guys are questionable. Marcus Williams looks like he might be coming back this week. That's great. But like I said, just so many injuries there. It's tough to know exactly what you're going to get from the Ravens defense, and we never know what we're getting from this Browns offense until proven otherwise. So yeah, wild game. Can't wait to watch. Definitely not betting it. Denver at Chicago, the shit show of the year, potentially here. Now, I think some of that is a little bit, recency bias just because of how dramatically bad Denver was last week. Their defense has struggled this year, to say the least, but they're not going to be giving up 50 points every week. I think Denver's offense has actually played pretty solid this year, under the radar. And that's really why I'm siding with Denver in this game. I'm going to take them to win this one, 28-24. But I do think we see points, man. And I tweeted it out. I said, if you're not taking the over in this game, are you even really living? I mean, 46.5 points for, teams that have explosive playmakers and are playing probably the two worst defenses in the NFL. Denver couldn't tackle anybody last week. And now they're going to have to come out and tackle some Bears players that, for as bad as that offense has been, I mean, Justin Fields, DJ Moore, those are two of the hardest players to tackle at their respective positions. So I do think we see a lot of offense in this game. I love the over in this game. I don't make over-unders plays for me too often, but I'm doing it this week. I am betting a unit on the over 46.5 points. And even if Fields struggles to throw again this week, I think he could run for $180 in this game and a couple touchdowns based on what we saw from Denver's tackling last week. 24 missed tackles by Denver last week. That's going to be tough to clean up in a week. Raiders at Chargers. Chargers 5.5-point favorites in this game. I have seen nothing from them to feel confident in them beating anybody by 5 points. It's just, Chargers going to Charger. I have learned my lesson over the years to stay away from them until they prove that they're a different football team. But likewise, it's difficult to pick against them because they're going against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Justin Herbert was incredible last week. This Chandler Jones situation just gets weirder and weirder every week for the Raiders, who seem to be spiraling a little bit right now. So gonna go Chargers to get back to 500 here, winning 31-24. But if the Chargers defense sucks and the Raiders put up 35 and win a close game, I'm not going to be all that surprised either because they're just that bad on that side of the ball. But get your fantasy players in there. This should be a high-scoring matchup. Unlike our next game here, New England at Dallas, I disagree with some of the numbers here. I don't, for one, understand the 43.5-point over-under. I think this is going to be a defensive struggle. I think this is going to be a low time game. I don't even know how you would say that, but I think there's going to be a lot of running in this game. I think the clock is going to be moving and we don't see a ton of points unless we're getting defensive touchdowns, which might be how you lose the over-under in this, going under 43.5 points. But yeah, I mean, I'm worried about Dallas and their offensive line question marks right now. Dak has not been great this year. I think New England is going to do some stuff to confuse him. New England's, had a big bounce back week last week, and I love this defense. I also think offensively for New England, they have enough ways to kind of neutralize this quick-hitting pass rush of Dallas. They like to get the ball out. They like to run the ball. I'm not saying they're going to have a big week offensively against Dallas, but I don't think it's going to be quite like it was in that Jets game where they're just, forcing 3 and outs all game. So I definitely think low scoring. I think the 6.5 point spread in this one is very generous based on how Dallas played last week and how New England plays football. Ultimately, I'm going to take the home team here, Dallas. Don't have a lot of confidence in that. I'm really excited to see this matchup. But I'm going to side with Dallas, getting a bounce back game, 20-16 here, getting back on track. Arizona at San Francisco. Don't need to spend a ton of time on this game. I was very happy last week. I had to talk myself out of betting against Arizona for a third week in a row. 2 of those losses in my bet the spread and plays where Arizona proving me wrong in the first 2 weeks. And another 14-point spread here this week. Vegas is not caving. I like a lot of the stuff Arizona's done, but this is a different type of challenge for them to match up with the Niners' offense. I mean, Dallas's offense is much more structured, whereas San Francisco's offense is like, can you tackle us? And if there was a problem for Arizona last week, it was tackling. So it's going to be a different challenge for that defense. They just don't have the talent in the linebacker room, in the secondary, to match up with these guys. I'm not going to bet against Arizona. I'm doing the same thing I did last week. If this was like a 12-point spread, though, I'd probably take it. But because it's 14, that's just a little bit too much. I do think San Francisco rolls, though, 28-14, and the Niners' defense should be able to provide plenty of problems for Arizona's offense. Kansas City at the New York Jets. Now, I'd be a fool if I took the Jets to win this game, but I actually have a gut feeling, and gut feelings are always very, dangerous, I suppose. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. I have a gut feeling that this is going to be a good football game. I just think this is a last hoorah game for the Jets defense. Sunday night football against Patrick Mahomes. They're playing so good defensively. I think they can do enough to keep the score down. I like Kansas City's defense quite a lot. I'm not expecting the Jets to have a big game offensively, but I think they'll look a little bit better this week than they did against the Cowboys and Patriots defenses. So, I'm not trying to be too takey or anything here, but my gut really tells me the Jets put up a fight in this game. I think the 8.5 point spread is a lot. Could totally backfire on me, and the Chiefs win 34-10, and this game spirals out of control. But a long week to prepare for the Jets here to kind of rally and give it everything they have. So we're going 20-16 Chiefs. And then Seattle at the New York Giants. A really long week for the Giants to prepare in this one. They played on Thursday night last week. So an extra 10 days for Brian Daboll to look at, in my opinion, a very squishy Seahawks defense that doesn't match up great against the Giants, who haven't been able to pass protect to save their life. This is going to be a breath of fresh air for the Giants, to say the least, who a lot of their offensive struggles have come against the Niners and Cowboys pass rushes. That's not what they're facing this week. So I think Daniel Jones can have some more success in this game. He's shown us now in the second half of that Cardinals game, in that Vikings playoff game, that when he faces these, squishy Fangio-style defenses, he plays pretty fast and pretty well. So I think the Giants' offense responds decently enough this game. Also, this is a Monday Night Football in New York, like total backs against the wall game for the Giants with all this extra time to prepare. I mean, that's Thursday Night Football to Monday Night Football. That's a lot of time for Brian Daboll to put together a good game plan here. So I do think the Seahawks are the better team, but I'm going to lean with the Giants in this game. I'm not terribly confident in that. Obviously, Seattle's offense is very dangerous, and these receivers could just run wild on this Giants secondary. So I'm not going to go as far as betting this game, but I'm kind of tempted just to kind of roll with Brian Daboll and see what happens. But we're going to stay away from that here. And that concludes my Week 4 NFL picks. Really hope you guys enjoyed. Enjoy your weekend of football. Please do hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already. But beyond that, if you want access to this every single week, can head over to patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy, and we'll see you over there next week if you choose to sign up. But thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Peace out.